And lastly, we're going to move on to the movie review section of our show. And surprise, surprise, we haven't figured it out yet. That is Shazam! Fury of the Gods. We finally got to watch Shazam 2 in theaters. And I'm going to start off here and say that, well, it wasn't bad. I didn't dislike the movie at all. Is it nearly as good as Shazam 1? No. I do think it is a big step down from Shazam 1, especially because I think Shazam 1 is a great movie. I don't think it's a good movie. I think Shazam 1 is a great movie, and I think it is a step down from that. And but what this movie really has going for it is the dynamic and the chemistry between all of the Shazam family, and that includes both the adult actors and the child actors. Like, they all did great together, mixing and matching. Like, you buy it. The humor was on point. You buy everything. I know, as I mentioned earlier, there's this new wave going on of like saying Shazam's performance doesn't match up. I personally feel that it does. Yes, Zachary Levi can be silly, but Asher Angel also says snarky, sarcastic things when it's him. So like, I personally never felt that difference personally. They give, oh my gosh, the actor who plays Freddy, who is in it,
Jack Dylan Grazer.
He gets a lot of heavy lifting to do in the movie, and he does really well for the most part. I mean, there's some stuff he's in situations where no matter who's in that role, like, they can't really buy that scene, but he does a really great job. They gave Djimon Hounsou a lot to do. They let him show his comedic chops, and he was really funny. Rachel Zegler was also in the film. I think she did the best that she could with the dialogue she was given. I don't think the writing surrounding her and also surrounding the villain characters of the film with Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu, I feel like the dialogue there was a bit off. The dialogue overall in the film was kind of clunky. However, I think the performers had fun. I think Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu were kicking it. Like, they were having a good time. Then I think they did the best they could. But I will say the biggest weak link in this film are the antagonists. And the antagonists and like the whole main story purpose for existing just didn't seem like, literally when you realize what the story of the film is, I'm just like, why like, what are we doing this for? Like, it just didn't seem there's something that happens at the end of the movie, and I feel like the entire movie was built around so they could do that, which felt off. But I think that there's a lot of great stuff in the film, and I think overall I thoroughly enjoy the movie. Again, it is not nearly on par with Shazam 1, but I don't think it is a particularly awful film. I think if you ask me right now, what would you rather rewatch, Ant-Man 3 or Shazam 2? I would pick Shazam 2.
Interesting.
And now, again, because I think if you take Kang out of Ant-Man, I don't know how much I like that movie. If you take the villains out of Shazam, it's a better movie. Like, I don't know, like, how to really go there. If you took the dynamic out of Shazam 2, I wouldn't really want to watch it either, the dynamic with everybody. So, each one has its own thing going for it. It was just trying to, and making that comparison. But I think a big missing component of this movie was, I really liked the villain of the first film, Dr. Savannah. And
Mark Strong's a terrific actor.
Yeah, and he had his own backstory. You believed his motivation. You understood why he was doing what he was doing. And in this film, on paper, you understand why they're upset, the villains of this film. But it's just a blanket statement, like, this is why we're mad. And then it just moves. And you never really get the moments alone you get with them. They weren't enough to really intrigue me about them. And I didn't feel this connect to want to learn more about the villains in that way, like I did with the first film. So, yeah, it's still a recommend from me. However, I do think it is a big step down from Shazam 1.
Okay.
Nicholas.
I have very differing opinions on this one, actually. I think that it got rid of the wrong things from the first one. I think that the charm of the first one was like the family dynamics and everything. And it's kind of something if you want to compare it to Ant-Man as well. Like I love the family dynamics with the ex-wife and like that whole unit. And I feel like we get the interplay of them as the adult versions of the superheroes, but I feel like the kids have better chemistry than all the adult actors. But they really focus more on the adult side of things. And especially like with the parents, like I love that whole storyline. Like with the two parents of the foster home, like when they come into the mix, it's really good. And granted, in this one, there was such the dialogue wasn't great with them, and you clearly minute they like his first line to the actors who plays the mom, you're like, oh, that's the emotional beat for the third act. I like they didn't even try to like kind of hide that. Um, I think the creature designs you get kind of glimpses of them in the trailers. I think they're on point, um, which I think was a big thing in the first one too. Like I love the designs of the seven deadly sins. Um, and I think the opening scene might actually be my favorite scene in the movie. And I think when that scene was happening, it's kind of more horror esque, letting David F. Sandberg kind of do his thing. And I was like, yes, that's why you give Slither Guardians of the Galaxy. That's why you give Evil Dead Spider Man. Like more horror directors should direct superhero movies. Um, I did feel the disconnect between the two performances with Zachary Levi and Asher Angel, and I feel like that might only be because I think that Asher Angel was severely sidelined in this movie in favor of Zachary Levi's performance, which I think is a shame because I think Asher Angel is the better actor. Um, and then there's just like some dialogues that you just kind of have to go, like the I've seen all the Fast and Furious movies, and it's like, okay, except the ones with the person that looks exactly like you.
Hmm.
But that's just a comment that Spider-Man makes a Star Wars reference, but he doesn't know Mace Windu.
Yeah, yeah.
um, that being said, though, I think the Fast and Furious franchise makes better use of Helen Mirren. Um,
I'll give you that.
I think that they gave a lot to Jack Dylan Glazer. I agree, and I think his scenes with Djimon Hounsou's wizard, I think, are the best kind of scenes in the movie, and that's when I kind of felt the same charm and fun of the first one. I
Hmm.
think it just suffers from sequel syndrome of more effects, more budget, more scale, more set piece, and instead of these kind of personal moments that we got in the first one, like the scene in the first movie when he goes to find his mom,
Oh my God.
like nothing in this movie reached the emotional heights of that
Big
scene.
agree. Big agree.
So we're just kind of left with noise, and the noise was fun that we got. I mean, I like to watch people fight dragons because who doesn't? That's cool.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
when you have that, but if this was the first Shazam movie, I think it would have been a lot different received. But when people who are big fans of the first one see it, it's kind of just like, eh.
Yeah.
And I did not like the Rachel Zegler storyline personally.
Hmm.
That felt kind of forced in, and it was odd to me because it seemed like it was there to even out things
Yeah.
at the end of the movie, but
Mhm.
that felt unnecessary because that's just diminishing what the other heroes do.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that because I was reading an interview with the director David Sandberg, and he was
Mhm,
talking about the Rachel Zegler thing, and he had cast her before she was cast in West Side Story.
mhm.
And the original like idea was in the marketing they weren't going to tell you that Rachel Zegler was like had powers, which they do in the first trailer for Shazam 2.
Yeah.
And then like and that was supposed to be like a big reveal because he said in the test audiences something that they loved is they didn't figure it out with her. And when West Side Story hit, they were like, well, we need to let people know that like we have a player, we have like Rachel Zegler as a player in this film. So they changed the marketing strategy. And I'm wondering in hindsight, like if we hadn't known that going in, how it would have played out. Like I don't know, I'm curious about that. But
Regardless, I feel like that aside, I feel like the dialogue, the scene, like it was just
yeah, no, I agree.
everything felt
Yeah,
very just generic in this one, like an AI
very
written
very
sort
very
of.
first draft.
Yeah.
And the only places I'll really disagree with you is the I like the dynamic with the kids. there's a lot less of them in this movie
Mhm.
than the first movie, and I do agree that Asher Angel does get sidelined in the movie a lot. But and I think Asher Angel is a great actor, and I think he's going to continue growing to be a great actor. I think Zachary Levi is a good actor. I mean, I've never seen him in anything that I've disliked yet.
Mhm.
I think he's starting to get a little one note, and I think that his next project, he should do something like not in his comfort zone, like, me, Mr. Hollywood agent who knows all over here. But I'm just saying, like, if it were me, I would do a movie that's like completely the opposite of what Shazam is, just to
Mhm.
like remind people, like, hey, I act, like I can do this. And it's
I I just don't think I don't think Zachary Levi has figured out the character yet.
I disagree, because that whole first movie was magical, and I think in that first movie
Mhm.
he knew exactly what the character was, and everything was firing on all cylinders in
So
that
do you
first
think he
film.
just suffered this movie it's not on Levi, it's on the script, the
I
dialogue he was
I
given to work with?
I think majority of the movie's problems is on that,
Mhm.
1,000%. And it's not the
Uh,
worst superhero screenplay like I've seen or heard, rather, but I think it's because even in the sequencing of events, it was a bit off. Like,
mhm.
what I'll give the script is there's some world building stuff I enjoyed greatly, like all the doors. We get to see more of that, like the library and Steve the Pen. I love that character a lot,
That was fun, yeah.
and just like that stuff was really interesting. It was just the exposition and how the movie decided to move the plot along via exposition did not work. Like, that was
Mhm.
really bogged it down. And I think with how charming and humorous the movie was and all of that stuff worked, it couldn't counterbalance all the other stuff fully. But I think overall as a film, especially that opening sequence, that horror sequence, is really well done.
Yeah.
I think that, the movie really is a mixed bag. I lean positive towards it. I probably would give it the same grade I would give Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is like a B
Mhm.
minus probably. But I'm gonna watch it again.
How much do you think Skittles paid for advertising in that movie?
That's a good question. Now here's the thing. That type of joke almost seems like it could have been written in. Because I
Mhm.
haven't seen the first Shazam in a while. Because I saw it like a couple times when it was in theaters, and then I watched it once when I, excuse me,
Yeah.
got the 4K. And then I hadn't watched it since, maybe in like a year or two. And I don't remember if that character liked Skittles in the first movie. Like, I don't remember.
I
So,
don't remember, I just rewatched it recently, I didn't catch anything
okay, so
like that, yeah.
if they did, it had to be in the tens of millions. Like, that was almost Krispy Kreme and Power Rangers level, like,
Mhm.
stuff.
You you know what it is, I think, about this one? And I think that it's for a superhero movie, it leans more comedy. It relies heavily on comedy. And if you
Mhm.
look at a movie like Deadpool, right? If you rewatch the first Deadpool, it's a joke a minute, and sometimes they don't land, but that's okay because you're immediately at the next joke. And
Mhm.
I think that's what this movie does, except most of the jokes don't land.
I see. For
I
for
think is
me,
the issue.
for
There are
me, a
some that are
lot.
very funny.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
me, a lot of the jokes did land, and that's probably where the hindrance of enjoyment leans for us.
Mhm.
But I do think that I want to emphasize, because we had this conversation with like the group of friends outside the movie, where I'm like Shazam 1's a great movie, and the consensus among the group was like, it's okay. And I was like, we're not gonna blow past that. Like, me
Mhm.
personally, I think Shazam 1 is a great
I
movie. Like,
think
I
I
think
had
it
it
is a
as my
great
3rd
movie.
favorite DC movie.
Like, it is a great movie.
Yeah.
And so you do feel that drop in quality,
Mhm.
but I didn't walk out of the movie being upset that I watched it, or like disliking it overall. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Now, of course, it is me talking, and I'm predisposed to not to liking things. if if I walk out of a movie and I say that movie was not good, that movie was not good. Like, you know, I try to look for the enjoyment in things, but um, I will, say it was a big step down in quality from 1 to 2, but it's still a recommend for me. I don't know about
I
you.
You know what I think it is, and I'm gonna keep using this example. Multiverse of Madness did not feel the madness of the multiverse. I did feel the Quantumania.
Hmm.
I don't think I felt the fury of the gods in this
Didn't
one.
feel the fury of the gods, huh?
I feel like with that title, it just realistically he pissed off two.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like with the gods, I was expecting like the name Shazam is after like a bunch of the different gods,
Hmm.
Zeus, Atlas, others. I was expecting something like that coming into the play, not just two.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. But before we go though, there was one beat in the film that I really did enjoy.
Hmm.
And where I thought, because like I agree with you that the emotional one with the mother at the end was if it fell flat,
Hmm.
other than like, I won't spoil it, but there was a part of it that didn't fall flat, but the overall moment fell flat.
Hmm.
A moment that didn't feel flat, and I'm gonna say it because they showed it in the trailer, is the Shazam character throughout the movie kind of thinks that the wizard made a mistake. And
Yeah.
there's a great sequence in the end where Djimon Hounsou gives him a speech where he's like, I did not make a mistake. And I thought that moment worked really well.
Yes.
But then it was immediately followed by that moment with the mother. I think they were like one right after another. And it did hinder it. But, you know, inconsistent, I think would be a great word to describe the movie.
Yeah, because I mean, even from the trailers, you kind of see that this concept is that Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu are upset,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just going around. And what the trailer tells you is that they're just trying to take the powers back from these kids.
Yeah.
And I think there was too much flip flopping with that idea in the movie as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like if they had played it like that was fully what was happening, and they're just like taking out these kids left and right, I feel like that added a lot more stakes
Yeah.
through it. Of like throughout the whole movie, Shazam's like, "Oh crap! Like I need to fight them."
Yeah. And like mild spoiler,
Mhm.
if they would have committed to a decision that they made, I think it significantly helps the movie.
Yes.
Um, I'm glad you know exactly what I'm talking about. And two, in regard of like the stakes, I think if the another again mild spoilers for Shazam 2. I think if once the kids got turned, they couldn't be turned back,
Yeah.
it would have raised it a bit.
I think that's kind of what I was trying to get across. Yeah.
Yeah. But like the um that one decision that they make at the end, which leads to, a very cool fan moment, which I did get goosebumps when I heard a particular character's theme song. But if they would have committed to that decision, I would have been like ballsy. But
Hmm.
didn't exactly work out that way. But yeah. So
I,
are you go ahead.
I did like the post credit scenes.
I did too.
I think those were some of the better scenes of the movie.
I
Um,
Yeah.
but at the same time, are they leading anywhere? The gun reboot,
Who,
what is
who
this?
knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? But I will say, do you recommend?
No.
Oh, we got a one of each. It's been a while since that's happened.
It is, yeah.
All right, one of each, guys. Who all 7 movie nights listeners, who you gonna listen to? Are you gonna listen to Nicholas or myself?